I call to order the workshop for Bullhead City Elementary School Board on Thursday, 10/17/19 at 5 p.m. Secretary, please take the roll. Please call the roll.
Brandy,
Here, present.
Corey,
Here.
Diane,
Here, present.
Jeannie.
Present.
Okay, so on our agenda, Colorado River, Coyote Canyon, IGA.
Okay, I hope I supplied, Madam President, I hope I supplied the information that you all asked for. Kim helped round up the things for insurance, and I don't think the insurance company had ever been asked the question quite that way before. It took us, 3 tries to get what we really wanted, which was breaking down the insurance specifically by that site. And so we pay $13,906 a year for Coyote, just for the property. We pay more additional for the contents, but that didn't seem to be the issue, which breaks down to $11.59 a month, or and then if you split it 60/40, which I had done for the other things, you see the amounts there. And then the custodial, I talked to ABM, and the 2 districts pay almost the same amount of money. There are 3 custodians there, but they pay almost the same amount of money when you add to the salary and benefits. So you split the salary and benefits, but then more for the product, because she included that. And that's because the preschool has stricter sanitary requirements than regular classrooms, plus each of those classrooms has a restroom, so there are more restrooms that have to be cleaned and more whatever. So that's how those broke out. So they're essentially 50-50. And then Doug caught today that I had not put the other information on the crush side for the use of the cafeteria. So I did that, and you have that in front of you, and that brings their square footage up to 21,255. So now those 2 numbers really break out to be 55%, 45% for our usage. So that could affect the insurance thing. So then on the actual agreement that you all saw last month, then based on the conversations, I changed it from specifying electricity, water, sewer, all of that kind of thing, and just made it a cost of use, sort of like a rent. And I based those numbers on the square footage. It does not include, those numbers do not include anything with the insurance. So I didn't go back and change that on this draft because you already had received this, and it had already been posted with the agenda. So, so if you want to consider that and consider in any way insurance, then you can change those numbers. But because this had already been posted on the website, I didn't want to come with a changed one for tonight. You all can change it.
So we need to add the $11.59 a month for insurance, or I'm sorry, the $463.
Well, you could add the 463, or I could recalculate
Isn't
that to
contingent on the-
55.45.
Yeah.
I can recalculate that on the
Oh, for the 55.45.
55.45 if you want me to. And let's see. I'd rather do it on a machine. Let me get my phone. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll reach my phone from here. No. Anybody have a phone in front of them?
I have one.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Part of the library.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so, you don't have a percent?
I think there's maybe do that.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. I'm
Okay,
getting used to it.
so, yeah, the 45% then is 521.55. So that would bring, if you were changing the 2989 and adding that, it makes it 3510.55. 3510. If that's the direction you want to go with that. I just thought it made it easier if it were just one amount as opposed to calculating every month the breakout based on the conversation that you all had. Thought I'd offer it that way.
So the numbers, I like them, but, so we just need to add that insurance, because now we know that percentage.
Now that we know what it is, so,
Okay.
so, you know, if that's your pleasure, we would change that to read, for crushed use of facility will be 3510. Do you want the 55 cents, or you wanna make it 3511? You wanna make it 3510? What do you wanna do with that?
Which one are we on?
I
I'm
think we
sorry, I
need
was
to keep the
looking at
numbers what they are, so it's 3510, 35, whatever it is. Have
Put
it-
the cents on there?
Yeah.
Where are you
Okay.
at on here?
I'm on, okay, so what I did was so
You
this,
recalculated that.
right, which becomes 521.55.
That's the 45%.
And then added that to,
Oh, this, okay.
it's in blue, there, to this number, right here. Okay, so that just changes that. So what it does is it covers all of the utilities that have been included in the past. It includes insurance. It doesn't include the custodial because that's already split roughly 50-50. You know, we've never asked for that because both districts pay right around $58,000 a year between personnel, salaries, benefits, and products used. So I figured that was a wash for that.
I still think we should go like it is 50-50. I know I mean, nowhere can you not be charged for facility usage. You know, I don't agree with the numbers. It's just mine. I don't agree.
Even based on the difference in square footage used?
It's not that, we're just, all we're doing is changing the verbiage. We're not adding anything else. We're
Well, we've
basically just
changed, we've
changing
now
verbiage.
changed the percentages though, based on the real square footage.
Yeah,
So that we
5%.
have.
But I mean,
I'll do whatever y'all want. I mean, I don't care, you know,
I think we're really trying to, we have a small portion of kids in that one classroom already with one teacher and 2 assistants. that are
we have
there.
all the preschool.
And then the preschool, and some
Mhm.
of that preschool is funded through grants that help to cover some of those costs. So,
Okay, but, so you understand, we're really using 4 rooms for the academy for different purposes, okay? So it's not just
I thought
one
it was
room.
8 and 9 is what we said last time, the academy, Crushed Academy.
No, that's the number of kids. We have 8 in the morning and 6 in the afternoon.
No, I mean, we have
Okay.
have those kids for our life skills.
Right, the Life
At the
Academy,
Crushed
right.
Academy, we had written down that it was 8 or 9 rooms they were
They are using, they're using one whole building,
Right.
just like we're using one whole building for preschool.
Mhm. And it's our building.
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
I guess I'm.
No,
my
I'm not
head's just
arguing
still
with you, I'm
wrapped
trying to
around
understand what you're saying.
The,
I'm not arguing, I won't argue about it, because I don't care. Whatever you all say is what's gonna be happening. Or at least what we're gonna propose to the high school board. Because, you know, whatever you all end up with is then going to go to them. I will tell you that the other thing that I did add, if you drop down to section, Roman numeral 6, oh, no, sorry, Roman numeral 7, where it says termination. Any party may terminate this agreement, and then your attorney, the board's attorney, suggested that we put a time frame on there and that it be in writing. So I took out the word without and put with 30 days written notice, because he recommended that. He said otherwise you don't, first of all, if you say with 1 day's notice, that doesn't give anybody time to move. And you could have made it 60 or 90 or whatever, but I figured for most places for rental, it's 30 days, right? And so I've changed that section on every single one of the IGAs, made that recommendation from the attorney as part of it.
Honestly, if we're not gonna go the route of charging them any type of rent for the facility, only the cost of them to use it, which they generate that cost. And,
Well,
I
unless you
mean,
wanna,
I'm-
unless you want to increase that. I was just
mean,
giving
I'm
you
just
the
saying
actual
I would
cost of
like to
us.
see it at a 50-50 at least. I mean, we own the building, they're in the building. If we're not charging them a rental fee for that building, I feel it should be at least at 50-50. And I also would like to see a change in
Is it long?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
the way
Just
the
have to
principal
touch
is
it
in
and-
there
I know,
too,
thank you.
because
Tap it
from my
twice.
understanding, the preschool director can oversee discipline of the preschool students. It doesn't need a principal on the facility.
Right. And we learned that when I did the research
Yeah,
for you.
and when I had called up to the county school superintendent's office, and he stated any principal can oversee that handful of students at our Life Academy. And if they're technically based out of their home school anyways, and that's where their discipline has to go through, I don't think that principal fee should be split. the
I
way
took it
is.
off on the other one. Where
That's
the
what's
principal
crossed out,
one,
right?
it's on a separate,
not.
it's on a separate document, and I took it off at your
Okay.
recommendation. You guys
Okay.
recommended that, so I
didn't see
just took that one off.
Okay.
Okay?
You're right here.
But I feel if we're not gonna charge rent, I would like to see at least a 50-50 agreement on those utilities over there.
Okay. All right, so that would bring it to. I have to think about my algebra here, sorry.
Oh, you're fine. You can turn it, does her
Um,
switch if you turn it sideways to a different
No,
calculator?
that's okay, I'm just trying to think, if 2989 is the 40%, okay, so then, okay, so then that would bring, 50% would bring that part to 3736 and change. And then if we added in the 521, that's still at 40%. So if you wanted to add in the 50% of insurance,
And our insurance will cover their things inside the building?
No,
or is
they
it
have their own
completely separate
coverage.
insurance? Okay,
they have their own,
okay.
and we did check on that. They
Okay.
have their own, they have their own insurance for the contents that are
Okay.
theirs.
I know that was a question they
Yeah.
had on that, so.
So that makes it 431575. It's up to you
I'm
guys.
fine with 50-50.
I think that's, if we're not charging rent, I think that's fair.
Okay, and that's what you can
Put
present
on
during
the
your meeting.
Total cost?
Pardon me?
That's on the total cost.
That would be the total,
Minus
4315,
custodial, 'cause that's
Mine,
already
which
split.
is
Yeah.
separate.
except for
Right.
the custodial, which is
Right.
already 50/50.
You okay with that?
I think that's better, yeah.
Okay. Okay, and then. Oops. Where's transportation? There it is. Okay, on the transportation, well, that same, table of charts I gave you, Doug let me know yesterday, or the day before, frankly, I can't remember, I think it was yesterday, that he wanted some, data on, the cost of materials, or, oil and fuel and all that kind of thing. And, that wasn't as readily available, and somehow or other, even Kim listening to the tape 3 or 4 times and whatever, I didn't realize that's what he wanted. I will tell you, however, that, purchases for, tires, parts, oil are on separate POs for the 2 districts, and they are stored in separate places. Okay, so when they're working on a Bullhead bus, they use Bullhead supplies. When they're working on a crushed bus, they use crushed supplies. same for tires. So, so that's already split out. And then I gave you all kinds of information here based on the conversations you all had last month. So you can see the regular routes, the sped routes, the average number of daily riders, the bus miles, the van and car miles. So that's all about mileage and routes. And those are all directly from the document that got submitted to the state as the end of year report for last fiscal year from the Transportation Department. And then, because I knew there was interest in the service records.
How?
What's that?
How, their average daily riders for crushed, the whole district is 379.
Mhm.
That's River Valley, Mojave,
Mhm.
and crushed
That's
online.
everybody, that's their average. Mhm.
Our neighborhood is.
I know, I
That's
was,
half of them.
I mean, just driving,
probably, I'm just like, there's probably 3,000 kids between in that district, so.
Of high school kids?
Yeah.
Well, there wouldn't be, because the enrollment in the high school district's only 2,200 or something like that.
Then a lot of kids start driving at 16.
Yeah,
Marijuana or
I'm just
Yeah,
thinking
but
that number
three-
just seems
it
so low
just-
to me.
yeah, it's crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
I saw that.
Well,
like,
but if you
holy
look at
cow.
our numbers, 1297, and we have twice that many kids, and you would think in an elementary district you'd have a lot more kids riding the bus, you know, who are eligible to ride than half of the kids who actually are enrolled in the district, you would think. So I was a little surprised at that one too. I wasn't particularly surprised about the 379, because high school kids tend not to want to ride
Yeah.
the bus.
And there's no,
They're
like-
too cool, you know?
Mine won't let me drive them,
Really?
yeah.
Cool.
We don't have.
Don't
bus service
complain
where
about
I
that,
am.
okay? You don't have routes?
Live too close, I guess.
Oh, yeah, that happens
We're
too.
like within a mile.
Yeah.
right, half
Well,
mile.
and to me, there's a huge difference between actual bus miles and then van and car miles. And part of that is because for the high school, a whole lot of the extracurricular trips, they use vans instead of buses. So the total miles end up looking the other way, but in terms of those two things.
Yeah, and the field
So you,
trips
you
aren't
know,
as
so
there
you look
either.
at that crazy percentage there, you know, in terms of cars and vans, elementary district's only 3.3%, but then it flips up at the top. And then the service record, they keep a really good service record in terms of when they've serviced the buses and the cars. And this year, they had already started this year by designated who is actually doing the service. Last year, it was just an X for the date, anytime that they did them. This year, they're actually keeping track of who is doing the service on the various vehicles. And then the service calls are when they have to leave the yard and go out and service a bus or service a car. And I will tell you that the miles, it only takes like one trip to Phoenix to work on a bus to add up the miles really fast. You know, that is 500 miles real fast, or 420. They figure 420. And each district had at least one of those trips where they had to go to Phoenix to work on a bus and get it home. So, these numbers are all over the place. I don't know what you want to do with them. I thought it was interesting information, you know, it gave me a little different perspective on all of the stuff. In my head, it looks a little more like 50-50 than 60-40 anything. Either way, it looks a little more like 50-50 when you look at it overall, but, and actually the email I had from Doug was, he sent me, he goes, looks kind of like 50-50.
It's awfully close.
It is awfully close, isn't it?
Yes.
I would be fine with 50-50 on the buses.
On the salaries and the, those things?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so it just means some, changing of the wording on that, thing. Diana, are you?
no, yeah, that's good. I agree.
Okay. Okay. And then the spread one. one of the reasons that I took that off about the principal is having learned what we learned about the supervision of the preschool. And the truth is, given the nature of kids in the Life Academy, we really need that person right there, but we can just do it. You know, and, I mean, it can just be done. It's not gonna be a huge amount of time and that kind of thing. The other thing is that we are really working to upgrade the program in a way that really works on helping the students who are coming into the academy learn the skills they need as quickly as possible to move back to their own sites. So the intent is not for them to be there a huge amount of time. They're there because there are extremely dangerous behaviors that make it impossible for them to be in a regular classroom. But that doesn't mean that they can't be helped to learn better self-regulation and those kinds of things. And that's our goal, is to make it so that they can function better in their regular school.
That's what I read in Elisa Burrows' report,
Mhm.
that we are capped out, right? That it's.
We are kind of kept out. It was based on the number of computers, but we've been working with James to round up some others too, so that, but we really don't want either section, either the 6 through 8 or the 3 through 5, to be many more than 8 kids. Because think about,
Yeah.
you know, the danger of the situation. We have 2 adults, and especially the bigger kids, you know, when it's 6 through 8, you've got some kids who are physically pretty big. We really don't want to go beyond 8. The number of 15 had to do with the number of licenses that we have available for the academic portion of the program. But we're working on that to increase that, so that we could have 8 and 8. We could have as many as 16. Right now we have 8 and 6.
So what
but-
happens if there is a need, like if a child, you know, is not making it in the regular school?
We've been talking about that, because we have right now a couple of kids that probably would benefit from being in that intense
Because the year's just started and they have to do all
intense
the data
situation,
tracking and all
right?
that.
So we're kind of we've kind of had to figure out how can we accommodate those kids that are kind of on the waiting
Mhm.
list, at the same time making sure that we're serving the kids that are there already.
Yes.
The teacher in the classroom is new. She just came to us, one of our Filipino teachers, and she's well-trained. She already has established a really good relationship with the students there, which is critical with this group of kids. And, but she needed some coaching. And so temporarily I've assigned our counselor, who is really good with this kind of situation, to help her figure out routines and set up the routines and things that weren't set up because we had a sub in there at the beginning of the year. So we're kind of having to go back and fix some things management-wise and organizationally, and then turn that over to her as we go. But our goal really is to have kids there for as brief a time as possible. And I don't want to say fix them, because I'm not sure we ever fix issues that any of us have. You know, we have to fix our own issues, but at least help kids get the skills they need and the strategies to manage their own behaviors well enough to survive back in their school sites. And so we're hopeful, and of course Murphy always comes along and messes with this, but we're hopeful that we can get that rolling along that way, so that if and when we need students to have that experience, that we have a slot for them. So, and if we don't, we're accommodating that in the schools.
Okay.
We owe it to those kids to do that. So that's why I took that one line out. The rest of it stayed the same, except for those red changes that you all made when you met with the high school board, and then the green change that Mr. Hufford recommended on Roman numeral 7. And just so you know, in the office there, There is a special ed secretary who is ours, the elementary district secretary, and then there's a part-time clerk, because we have far more students needing special services in the elementary district than in the high school district. But this other position, because there are the crushed folks on campus, we need somebody to answer the phone, we need somebody to do some scheduling for them and that kind of thing. So that was the basis on which we split that, recommended that split of 60-40. She does a number of things for our district, clerical things for our district as well, and she is the primary person to answer the phone for both districts.
Fine with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Should make that go easy in the meeting.
Well, of course, because we plan for so much time.
Well, I was hopeful that I would give you all the information you wanted to make it so, you could get where you wanted to be, so,
You did that.
thank you. Thanks to Kim for a whole lot of the legwork on it, because she keeps me going here. Okay, so, Madam President, 1.5, and we made sure that Alex is here, and he brought Stella with him, and they're here to answer any of your questions about food service and what we're doing with that.
So moving on to 1.5, food topics. Welcome, and thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
You want to share, do you have any questions, anybody?
Well, I guess my food issues are eating breakfast in the classroom drives me crazy. I don't think it's sanitary, the food doesn't come hot, there's not enough food for every child. And what's on the menu versus what they get as fresh fruits is concerning. Like, from my understanding, raisins is I can't see with my glasses on. It's like raisins is their fresh fruit option, or their fruit choice for breakfast, and
This year we actually instituted fresh fruit
For
breakfast.
on the breakfast?
Absolutely.
okay, and there's enough for every child in
You
the
can come in.
classroom? Should
Come
they
on.
choose to have it, or?
We kind of play a game with the numbers to try to figure out how many we're gonna serve, what those classes are gonna take, so that we're not wasting food. So yes, especially at the beginning of the year, we try to make sure that there's those options for everybody. Does it always happen? No. The schools can and send a student down to get that option if they please, but we do our best to try to get those numbers as close as possible.
And as far as like the foods go, I know at the high school, I don't have anyone at the elementary with a food allergy problem, but the high school offers one selection for a child with allergies to nuts and soy.
So if there is a food allergy, we can write up a plan and actually have a menu and food ready for that student every single day. That is one thing that we do for several of our students.
I believe there's 2 504 plans that we have currently that we follow. We've been following with Rissa Swanson. Was a Coyote Canyon Elementary student. She's currently up at Sunrise. And in the years that she's been having food allergies, we accommodated her, and this year they are reintroducing her food allergies that she's got to try to bring them into some kind of a controlled situation so that she's not carrying these throughout her entire life. And it seems to have been working. We can accommodate whatever she may need, but she's not been needing anything. Sunrise is also a peanut-free school, as is Desert Valley, and we accommodate the students in that respect, that we don't even offer a peanut option in the schools to accommodate that. And also the students are supposed to have been told, their parents are supposed to have been advised that school lunches brought from home aren't supposed to be having any peanut products, but we don't have any control over that, so. But we do really try to accommodate the students. We provide almond milk if necessary. We provide soy milk if necessary, all based upon the 504
And I'm the kid allergic to nut and soy.
I didn't know if 504 covered
It
food
does.
allergies.
I didn't
It does. It's a medical condition, and it will, if the parent lets them know,
That's great.
they
It is good
absolutely,
information, it is.
absolutely accommodate.
So is there?
And at both, I don't know about at Desert Valley, but I know that at Sunrise, the one student who has a critical nut issue. So the parents were notified before school, all the parents were notified before school, no nut products. Then we had a situation, you all know how kids are. You know that there are some kids who will only eat certain things. So one of the things we had to arrange was, okay, here's a child who will only eat peanut butter and jelly. It's the only thing that child will eat. How are we going to accommodate both of those children? And not make anybody feel like they're being singled out or, identified inappropriately. And so Mr. Roy worked that out, and so we can accommodate both of those kids and keep the one safe, and accommodate the other child who won't eat anything else. So we work it out.
I'd like to get back to the breakfast in the classroom topic, because I had, that's it, I was in the classroom and served my children there. So when we did have the raisins, and so I'm glad to hear that you guys changed it to actual fruits.
so
I'm sure that's probably more favorable. I couldn't believe how many students didn't like raisins, because when I was a child, I loved raisins, but they'd be like, I don't want raisins, and then we got cranberries, which was even less popular. Tried cranberries, so yeah. So that's good to hear. I do have a concern with eating breakfast in the classroom because the food is not kept at temperature. And I know that if the health department came, that they would find the food not to temperature, because I've been in the restaurant business before I became a teacher, and during the time I was teaching preschool. So I know that's not, you guys didn't choose that. I know that was an issue with the school at Desert Valley, I know. But I just am concerned about the food not being to temperature, because I know like the egg sandwiches were always cold by the time we got to eat them. So I just think that's a big concern.
So perhaps we need to readdress how they are packaged, because the red bags that we have were donated to us by the Dairy Council. And if they're not accommodating and they're not keeping those, because the food product's not put in there until right prior to the students coming to the cafeteria to pick it up. So
But then they take that food to their classroom where they're
sits
going
in
to
their
eat on their
classroom.
desk, that they've, who knows, washed their hands after the bathroom all day. Yesterday, if the custodians came in and washed the desks
custodians
appropriately
do not
at night,
wash
they
the
don't wash
desks
the desks
appropriately.
at
We do
night.
not have cleaners to wash the desks once they eat their food. Then they throw away their food. What do we have? A paper towel. They just wipe their desk with a paper towel, and it's like smudged.
And cereal spilled all over the carpet.
My
I had
carpet
kids that
was-
would eat the extra food out of the garbage can.
The carpet was miserable. I had a lot of special ed students in my classroom who would eat breakfast in the classroom and then go to the resource room, and one of them was rather clumsy and would spill all the time.
Yeah.
So
There's always
I
one
just
that
think
always
eating in
spills every
the
day.
classroom is just not sanitary and not to health code either.
And
And I looked at your
please
numbers.
understand, that's not on the food service.
I know that's.
That
I
was
know.
an administrative
Yeah.
decision.
But that was one of my questions on the food.
Sure, it is
food
one- it
issues.
is one of
So
the-
Yeah, it's
not
under
at
the
you
food
guys,
issues,
but
yeah.
On here too, maybe if they were coming through the cafeteria, breakfast participation would be up. I don't know.
Historically, that's not the
No.
case, and Jen can answer that fairly recently, because the kids will go play instead.
Yeah, unless you have some kind of a system where every child is required to go through that cafeteria, or through the line, but not required to take food, because they were made to do that at one time too.
Then they
won't.
just take it and throw it away anyway.
Yes,
Well,
exactly.
that's why it wasn't a good plan. But, unless you have something, they'll go out and play. They'd rather be at recess than eat breakfast, and then they get in the classroom and they're starving. So unless you figure out some ways to keep them from going to the playground first or instead, then I think that's why it was moved to the classroom, because our numbers of students who were actually eating breakfast went way up when we moved it to the classroom.
And I will tell you that I was one of the principals who resisted moving it to the classroom. And then we had hungry kids, and we're providing food for every student in our district. We've been approved for that for another 4 years. That's a 4-year cycle thing. I understand your concerns, Jenny, I do, and I understand the issues
I think
of
it's
cleanliness
just
and
a
those
mess
kinds of
and dirty.
things.
It is.
But we can address the cleanup, or making sure that the rooms are cleaner to begin with. Alex,
something
can you
to
answer
wipe
the,
off
and Stella, you gave a good response about the, checking to make sure the food is getting there hot. Alex, I think you told me that the health department actually has come and checked?
Yeah, they,
on our delivery?
because they ask, hey, how do you serve these products? And we let them know that our product is sent hot, we have time, temperature logs and everything. Our food is sent at the proper temperature, cold or hot, whatever it may be. And there's actually time parameters of when that food has to be consumed, and it can get down to a certain temperature and still be considered safe and sanitary. So, and we meet those, and we have met those requirements.
How often does the health department come and check?
For the breakfast, I can't say very often. Usually they come during the lunch serves or kind of during your busier times. But I mean, if that's something we want to request of the health department, they would be more than happy
I
to.
know that they have seen the bags, or they have seen the product ready to walk out the door at Coyote Canyon, and what they do is they follow it
Ah.
and wait till it's actually being served before they temp it. And at those times, it was fine at Coyote Canyon.
Okay. Well, that's good to know that they're being that precise, kind of thing.
I just know
just
several
depends on
times
when
it
they
was
arrive.
not to
And I
to
don't doubt
safety
that at all.
temperature.
Yeah, I don't doubt that at all.
Or not enough for everybody
Yes,
who wanted
another
it.
thing
and-
is there's not very many protein options in the morning. A lot of times there is another choice, but sometimes it's cereal and a cereal bar, like are the two choices. So I think there just needs to be more protein options in the morning also.
Absolutely.
Like every day.
I know we've added a couple of more things. With the meal pattern, the way it is, I printed out the lunch one and didn't bring out the breakfast one. Protein isn't a big thing for the breakfast, actually.
Yeah, it's usually carbs.
Yes.
Prepackaged
Which-
French toast, prepackaged super donut,
And that-
prepackaged
And that's a
mini French
conversation
toast.
that
It's
Alex,
all-
yeah, that's a conversation Alex and I had,
Preservatives and
right
that.
after your last meeting, because I've really pushed on that for a long time. We know that kids need protein, especially, and the younger they are, the more protein they need in the morning for their brains to function correctly.
And our menus are reflecting.
They're starting to do
we're
that.
Putting as much as we can in there and still meeting the nutritional guidelines that we can't go over as well.
Did Fox Creek get rid of their junk food snack bar that
Yes,
they have?
it's gone.
Okay.
For right now, and we're, and I mean, it's gone for now. We're going to continue to talk about that, but only because of the kinds of things that were being offered and what kids
Yeah.
were doing. They were throwing away their balanced meal to eat the other things. So, but for right now, that's gone. I will tell you also
All
that,
whole grain. They are all whole grain and snack bar compliant. or
right,
snack-
they're all, oh
smart
yeah,
snack
they're all
calculator
meeting the
compliant.
standards. They're
Yeah,
all meeting the
They do all meet the
standards.
standards.
Yeah, they do. I also talked with Alex after you all gave me ideas to talk with him, because I'd had the same concern about why are we not paying attention to what kids love to eat? And he said he's having some difficulty with his kitchen crews getting it, that they need to keep track. So we all know that if it's pizza day, that whatever the alternative is, probably nobody's gonna eat
It
it.
needs to be very minimal.
You know, so there needs to be plenty of pizza and not much of the other thing.
Yeah, that was an issue.
and
For the
same
older
on
kids,
the-
they'd always get left with just the alternative.
Well, it's kind of that way at breakfast too. So he's been
Yeah.
working on that with his crews to get them to understand that they need to do what he's telling them to do. Keep track of those counts, and it is different from site to site. We know that the favorites at one site are not the same as the favorites at another site. So, trying to really pay attention to that and then making sure he's got the food ordered to
They're not
accommodate
serving
that.
the leftover lunches for breakfast anymore, are they?
No.
I just had that conversation.
Yes.
Okay.
Just had it today. They're using chicken sandwiches in the morning, so what I did was I put a chicken biscuit sandwich on there, which is a breakfast entree. If they want chicken patties in the morning, I thought, why don't we give them it's a chicken breakfast sandwich,
Right.
as opposed to serving chicken sandwiches in the morning and chicken sandwiches in the afternoon. So we do look at, but they want that. They want those. So, I mean, we're trying to accommodate them by, giving them.
It's more protein too.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's good that they're wanting the protein.
Yeah.
It's good that you guys are doing that because like on breakfast pizza day, there was never enough breakfast pizza and I've actually had meltdowns.
Yeah.
And I had the principal tell me to give the child that has a meltdown his choice first, which the other kids will
Yeah.
like resent them for that and you don't want that. You know, why do they get special treatment to have the first pick of the food? And so it's
used to
good
go
that you're
through
not
and
gonna
cut it all
like
in
make
half
sure they
so
have
they
the
can all have
popular
it.
items so all the children can have them.
Piece of it.
What's that?
I used to buy paper plates and cut it all in half because
Oh.
there would be a fight over who got
Yeah, I
hot
had
breakfast.
to rotate like tables, like, okay, this week, the first table gets breakfast choice all week, so they have the breakfast pizza. Then the second week, that table gets the breakfast pizza no matter what. So it was a lot of organization to make, to keep the
That's
crew
not the
happy.
way, really, that's not the way it should be.
Yeah.
On that day, you should have.
It's rough in the classroom feeding them the breakfast,
Mhm.
and there's not enough milk for everyone who wanted cereal, because someone who had a hot breakfast might wanna drink the milk, and they only send 12 or 15. So I know,
It gets where I was talking with Dr. Stewart. I mean, one week the breakfast pizza is the most popular thing, so the next week 5 get taken. And so it really is hard. We try to adjust those numbers as best as possible. It's crazy how fickle the kids can be.
Sounds like
day
dinner
to
time at my
day.
house.
And from class to class, because some
Absolutely.
classes love corn dog, breakfast corn dogs, and
Absolutely.
the other class is like, no thanks, you know, so.
They really are trying to listen, and they really did want to know, you know,
Yeah.
Alex really
My
wanted to know your
My
questions
biggest
and
concern is
concerns.
the breakfast, the cleanliness, and that's not on you, and the food allergies.
Yep,
And I didn't know 504 plan could include that.
Yes. Is there a way?
It's really nice that the schools told me for my child who's been on a 504 plan for many years.
Yeah, it's too bad you didn't know that.
Can we provide anything that's approved or for teachers to have in the classrooms to help to clean those desks? Because I know there's some chemicals we're not allowed to put in classrooms, but
Right.
I mean, that will help some of it too, if we can clean up after the breakfast, clean the desks or the tables off.
I know a lot of teachers use Clorox wipes, but that's not probably food safe either. There's special chemicals you have to use on, you know, eating tables,
Yeah.
so.
We try to make sure that they have
MGS.
the things that are in the, you know, every site has to have a book that has
The
the approved
MSGS.
chemicals, the
Yeah.
MSGS. And so we've told people you can't bring your own cleaners. As teachers, you can't bring your own cleaners because we have to list it in the MSDS. So we try to make sure we have the things for them. Now, whether it gets used or not, we're hopeful that it does.
Yeah, we were never provided cleaners or anything,
I always
so.
did baby
I'm
wipes.
sorry to hear
Yeah,
that.
baby wipes, we had it from parent
Figure those are
donations,
safe.
yeah. Baby
Hopefully.
wipes. Mhm.
But not if they're not on the MSDS,
No.
so.
Yeah, you have to have like, there's a
So we'll just
certain-
we'll make sure that all of our principals also know, and if you're wondering, they're not here tonight because they're all headed off for, 21st century training, since we got the additional 21st century money. And Jen's staying until we're done with our meeting tonight, and she's headed off for that workshop that is required too, but that's why they're all. So we'll make sure that they know to pass on the word to their staff.
And since we've got food topics on here and it's kind of generic, the snacks in the classrooms, I know there was a list that had gone out, we had discussed it in the past. If a child is hungry in their classroom, can they bring in a snack from home and eat
The
that?
child, sure.
They can bring in their
Sure.
individual snacks at any
Just like,
time.
yeah,
They
bring it
can-
in like a lunchbox or whatever, and then during the approved snack time, sure. The other thing we are doing, continuing to do, is every site has a no thank you table,
Yay.
okay? For and so if it's a packaged thing like graham crackers or an approved packaged item that's been part of lunch or breakfast, the student doesn't want it, they put it back on they put it on the no thank you table. The teachers can take those and have those in their classrooms. Then that's available. So we know they're approved, we know they're smart snacks, we know that they're clean because they're still packaged.
Nice.
And milk, and we do that with milk as well. So, and then almost always the health attendants gather up a few of those things to keep in the health office, so that kids who arrive late say, they
didn't
come,
get
breakfast is
breakfast.
over, they didn't get breakfast, then
Nice.
we know that there are things available for those students. So, we're trying to make sure that we're covered, because we know hungry kids are not gonna learn.
No.
They're not going to learn.
I wanted to get some clarification on the, like not having anything else besides what's supplied by Chartwells in the
We
classrooms.
changed that. I
Did
sent
you?
that out, yeah.
Okay.
As long as it is approved by it follows the Smart Snack guidelines.
Mhm.
So right now, when I first wrote that up, Chartwells was the only source that I knew. We now know we have another vendor in the community, but we've now expanded that as well. I haven't come back to you and asked for the board for approval for a stipend for an individual to be the one person in our district who's kind of the referee of that. But we do know from the website that we can check things and see if they fit the guidelines. That doesn't mean we want to just turn people loose to go out and purchase things, but it means when we are purchasing things, like for this, to sell like at the snack bars at games at the junior high, or those kinds of things, that we can follow that. An extension of that is I had a conversation at the fire fair with a parent of a preschooler, and I need to follow that up with a classroom teacher. But historically, traditionally, one of the activities in preschool and kindergarten has been building the gingerbread house. And so we know graham crackers are an approved item, so that's not an issue. But we also know that all the other decorations that we used to put on those don't meet any guidelines at all.
Right.
And so I challenged this parent to think of, okay, what are items that could be used to decorate the gingerbread house that are healthy? And so her first thought was fruit, which of course will work. And then it's what would you use instead of frosting? And so she emailed me the next day and said, how about this? And I said, we'll check the guidelines, and if it works. So they were being creative. They're being
So if they wanted
creative.
to bring the food in for like the math manipulatives, I know like the second and third graders do a lot of different ones with, so if
We've
they were
said
to
no
use.
food
No
for
food,
that,
so
no
even
food
with
for
like
that.
the cereals that are on there?
Yeah, no, none of those, because we can't guarantee that those are going to meet, okay, so let's say, I don't think this is the case, but I'll use it as an example.
Yeah.
Let's say that Fruit Loops meet the standard. I don't think they do, but maybe they do, okay? So we say, okay, you can bring Fruit Loops, but then somebody goes to the store and gets the generic brand, probably not gonna meet the standard. So we've challenged all of our teachers to think of alternatives. Plus, we just bought a gazillion dollars worth of math manipulatives for our program. So I'm exaggerating, of course, but pretty good sized number of dollars for math manipulatives. And not use food as a reward. They have been exceptionally creative. The preschool teachers came up with 46 other things that they could use besides food for rewards and for projects in their classrooms. In 30 minutes, they came up with 46 other items. I thought that was pretty impressive to come up with that many. So, and then we don't have to worry about allergies. We don't have to worry about kids who might be diabetic. We don't have to worry about kids with peanut allergies. We don't have to worry about any of that stuff if there's not food.
I understand it. I just don't like it.
I don't either.
I don't like
I
it.
think that a memorable part of school is when you do those things like those, they don't do them, but once a year, sometimes they do the turkey or the ant logs or the, turkey.
Yeah.
I mean, Thanksgiving meal, like in your classroom, what if you wanted to pull a classroom together? We did that in school, and
Yeah.
we had the big
Fourth
old
grade at
Thanksgiving
Diamond Valley
feast.
Yeah, I don't like the no
Thanksgiving
exceptions.
I mean, it would be nice
we
to
could
be
have,
able
like,
to.
permission slips or checked with the principals or something, but.
It'd be
I just
nice to
don't
be
like
able
it.
to.
But then it puts us in violation, and we don't want to risk losing our free lunch and breakfast program because we're not following our own wellness policy that was developed by a committee a year ago, and then Jen just met with that committee this week to review whether or not we are following our own policy. And with the USDA and the laws
So
and
this
those
is
kinds
all
of
in
things.
place solely because we have the free breakfast
No,
and lunch
no,
program?
it's-
We made the
it's federal,
policy.
it's
So it's everybody
USDA.
whether they have it?
There's a
Yeah,
guideline,
it's
but
the USDA, they have to follow USDA,
Because
and
they're
To
serving
get
the
creative
meals.
with this, though, I mean.
we've tried to be creative with
like
some of
your
it.
gingerbread houses.
Sure, they can be
and,
creative.
well, even more so, if it's a fundraising event, you can do exemption weeks.
Right, and we've
So
done
you could easily
that.
turn that into the gingerbread houses as an auction. And they're building the gingerbread houses to sell them as a fundraiser for PTO or for a club on campus. And you just file the paperwork with the state, and now it's a fundraiser. And the state is real lenient on those fundraisers.
Even during the school day.
Yeah,
Yes.
you are exempt
So,
from
we can look
all
into some of
guidelines
those
during
things.
fundraisers.
But
So,
if you'll kind of bear with me on this, part of it is trying to undo a whole lot of bad habits. And so undoing them and saying, okay, you can't do them at all, and then we can start building in the exceptions. So That's part of it, because you and I've talked about this before. And, you know, I'm okay with us figuring out some things that we can do once people have kind of figured out, but there are things we can't do. So let's figure out where those lines are, and you set those, just like you do with your own kids, right? At home, you set some guidelines and say, this is the way it's gonna be. And then you figure out where you can do some alternatives.
And this would be really good for the person you wanna do to oversee that.
Right,
And say,
that's
okay,
exactly right.
Diamondback wants to do this.
Right.
How do we make this work? Oh, if we
Right.
combine it with a fundraising activity,
Right.
now we can file for a week
Right.
extension,
Right.
and we can do it.
And
So,
at that
there's-
point, everybody knows that that's the referee. That's the
That's
person
the
who
person that has
decides.
to
I
work
don't
with
wanna
the
be that
state, has to
person.
do all that
You know,
stuff.
I don't wanna be that person.
Mhm.
But then we have that person who can be, okay, and is kind of the sheriff, if you will, of making sure we're doing it correctly. So, just like when the parent came up to me at the fire fair and said, are you saying we can't do the gingerbread houses anymore? And I said, no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying if we play within the rules, you know. And truthfully, you know, I think the kids would enjoy decorating it with blueberries and,
Realistically,
Raspberries
a
and
huge
fun
bag
things.
of Skittles from Sam's Club is a lot cheaper.
Of course
Go a
it
lot
is.
farther than like a box of grapes that'll only
Of
go
course it
so
will.
far.
Which
Sure.
is right, as
And-
a whole, our country eats bad food.
Yeah.
Mhm.
and, which is why all of the stuff happened to have a wellness policy.
However, the produce market has leftovers every Friday. They may be willing to work with them on projects like that.
We just have to be creative, right? Well, we do, and we'll work with Charles on being creative. They're really willing to work with us on
Thank you
that
for
stuff.
coming and giving that information.
And I also want to give them kudos for how quickly they jumped in to accommodate the fact that we've not had gas at Desert Valley, starting last week. So all this week, those days last week and this week, they have figured out how to make it work. And still provide good meals for our kids at the sites that they serve, because it's not just Desert Valley that is served out of that kitchen. So, they've done amazing stuff. He says they're digging trench today, and we have been told that the meter is supposed to be moved tomorrow, so when the kids are not around, so. We're hopeful that they'll be able to be back in their kitchen on Monday, so, thank you guys for that.
I have one more topic,
Sure.
since we have time. So the time that the students have to eat last year was pretty small compared to how much time it actually takes a student to stand in line and actually eat all of their food. And as a teacher, I would come in to pick up my students and, you know, be on time. And a lot of times the teachers on duty had already made them throw away all of their food, no matter if they were done or not. The year prior to last year, I had a parent complain that her child wasn't getting to eat her food because she was a slow eater. So I would take her before the staff would make her throw away her food and send her to like a
Right.
separate table, like
Right.
the detention carols that we have, and she could finish there. Obviously, she didn't want to do that, so she would eat faster, you know, because she didn't want to be separated from everybody. So I
can look into that for you. I don't have
Yes.
an answer for it, because I
You
don't
might
know
wanna
what the
ask
meal
some of the
times are, but I can find
teachers.
out.
Did you guys
Because the
different on every
teachers-
site? I think
Yeah.
every principal has a different lunch period.
Okay,
But I
I'll
just like
find out.
felt bad because I know, you know, some of these kids
Sure.
are really hungry.
Sure.
But to have to be forced to throw away their food when
We
they're
don't want
not
that.
done just to make the time limit, I was not happy with. And I had
Which
brought
is-
it up to people, but
Yeah.
there was no changing
No,
it,
we'll
so.
find out.
Okay.
We'll find out what it is. It's the flip side of the junior high not wanting their food so they can have the snacks.
Yeah, the flip side of that, yeah.
I'll find out for you.
Okay,
I was
thank
thinking
you.
Diamondback flipped their lunches and did recess then lunch. I was just wondering if it gave them more time to eat that way.
That's what
always
Desert Valley
done
had, and it still
It
was like
still
a short
didn't
amount of
help?
time. Yeah. Because honestly, if you have a 20-minute lunch and you're
Yeah,
having
10
like
minutes in
6
line.
classes in line, and by the time they get through, you know, pick their salad bar because they can be kind of slow, and then come sit down, and then they also want to talk a little bit, you know, and we're just rushing them at that time, and so that's just always been an issue I've had a problem with.
Let's see if we can fix it.
Thank you.
I'll let you
Okay.
know.
Anything else food related? No, thank you again.
Thank you.
Moving on to 1.6, backup hardware for our servers. And Mr. McNutt, are you here to share information?
You kind of overwhelmed everybody with this last month, right?
He broke it down.
He did.
Yeah, Flagstaff really woke up a lot of schools in Arizona, and prior to the cybersecurity incident at Flagstaff, we had already been looking into what can we do to make things better. And since the attackers have figured out they can make money doing bad things, it has really opened up, and a lot of security professionals feel that schools are being targeted because they're generally understaffed. At an organization with as many clients and employees as we have, the technology department would normally be 3 to 4 times the size it currently is, but with the way education funding works, that's just not feasible. So we don't have the budget to hire security professionals and security trainers to go around and do all the things that a large company that would be targeted by these guys can do. So we're looking at what can we do to help mitigate our risks and then time to recovery. I really commend Flagstaff. They were only out of school for 2 days with their cybersecurity incident, and in that 2 days, they not only had to restore 100% of their servers from backup, they also had to re-image, redeploy the software on every single computer in the entire district. And that's no small undertaking. For us to do that here with the 5 people in our department would take weeks, because that's physically going around and touching and spending, about an hour or more on each computer. And then they had, a day where staff, teachers brought their laptops in and they just worked them through an assembly line to do the same process. So one of the solutions that we are exploring is, if we were to have a disaster in our server room, and this could take many forms. A sprinkler head gets hit by a ladder and causes the sprinkler system to go off in that room, or a water main breaks and shoots water through the concrete up into that room, or any number of things, including a cybersecurity incident. What can we do to get back up and running? So there's a lot of things to consider, much more than just how do we redeploy our servers. But right now, if the hardware in our server room were to be physically damaged to where it is not possible to operate, we are looking at about 2 weeks to get back up and running. It's not like I could take a truck to Las Vegas and drive up to Best Buy and say, I'll take 2 servers and a 10 terabyte storage submarkets and bring it back and hook it all up. Generally speaking, these devices are built to order. They're not sitting on a shelf waiting to be deployed, even though we have agreements with several vendors that, Dr. Stewart could just call them on the phone and say, send me $150,000 in equipment, and on her signature, they would just do it. So one of our plans is to completely refresh the server room and move some of the better older equipment to Sunrise. Sunrise is a shelter area, so it does have a generator on site, which makes it a really good candidate. If we were to have a natural disaster with the generator, we can still run payroll and count students present and that sort of thing. And then if something were to happen here, depending on the severity, it's, drive up to Sunrise, push the power button on a few servers, give them 15, 20 minutes to start up, and then hit go. And things would just get back to normal. In the case of a cybersecurity incident, it would be a little bit longer, because the data that would be copied to Sunrise in real time through the day would also be damaged, and we would have to restore from backup. And that's kind of what the big sheet depicts. Is there'd be a storage appliance here at the district office and the exact same storage appliance at Sunrise. And in real time, as data is being changed, attendance is being taken, what have you, that data is being copied to Sunrise. So you know, it would be near real time. If something were to happen here, the server room catches on fire, that's the case where we just drive to Sunrise, start up a few servers, and life gets back to normal rather quickly. If we were to have an incident where the data that's being copied to Sunrise in real time cannot be trusted, then that is where we would have to restore from backup. And even then, rather than it being a couple of weeks, we're talking a day to 2 days, maybe even as little as a couple of hours, depending on, you know, what do we need up and running. So for the most part, we treat our student management system, finance system, and user accounts, the ability for people to log into computers, as our primary critical servers. Without those, we can't do business. So those servers are backed up each night and can be restored within a few hours and back up and running. It may mean that the business office has to go work at Sunrise to generate paychecks, but that could happen. You know, maybe we have to do some reconfiguration with Suddenlink, but teachers could take attendance. You know, we could get things back up and running rather quickly. The other solutions that we're looking at is teacher training, staff training, I should say, not just teacher training. I can buy $10 million in hardware, and it's not as good as a teacher at a computer with the correct training. If we teach our staff what to look for and what types of activities lead to these infections and these cybersecurity incidences, that is by far better than anything we can buy. But we have to be, you know, right 100% of the time. The bad guys only have to get through once. It's getting to the point where it's not a matter of if we're going to be a victim of a cybersecurity incident, it's a matter of when and how bad. The cost to refresh the server room is going to come in right around $300,000. I did provide a quote from a vendor that is helping us engineer part of the solution. That quote with the special pricing comes in around $270, but then there is some network hardware that needs to be purchased and professional services, that sort of stuff that will push that cost. We're guessing right close to $300,000, and at that dollar level, we would have to go to bid. So we can't just get a couple of quotes and call it good. Unfortunately, I don't think that either district could bite off even 50% or 40% of that bill. That's just not going to be fiscally possible. The way that the equipment breaks down is it's real easy to split this project in half and buy 50% of the servers, 50% of the storage, and start implementing some of that, you know, right away or next year, what have you, and then continue that project later on another year. We also can do financing, you know, with a lease to own type of setup. My main worry with that is if we do it much more than 3 years, we're going to be paying on the equipment that is going to be coming up to obsolete. We're also currently working with another company that does cloud services, where we pay a set amount every month or every year, and they provide cloud services for some of these servers that are very critical. Then they become responsible for the backup. They become responsible for recovering from cybersecurity incidences. My only concern, well, one of my concerns with that is how available that is. That is very dependent on us having an internet connection to access those services. And then if we decide that it's not for us, we're right back here to buying hardware to replace those servers. So we're still working out what the price of that solution might look like. Realistically, if it's, you know, if we're going to be spending $300,000 every 5 to 7 to 10 years, how much does the cloud services cost? Maybe it is a better deal if it's, you know, $20,000 or $30,000 a year to move everything to cloud services, but.
How old is the current system?
The current system was installed, the elementary district servers were installed, I'm gonna say around 2009, so they're 10 years old already. We did buy a server appliance, I'm gonna say probably 5 to 6 years ago, but it was a remanufactured appliance, so it was, you know, a 3 to 5 year old device when we bought it. The high school servers are I'm gonna say about 7 to 10 years old. And all of the equipment has reached end of support, which means that we can no longer buy maintenance on it. If a part were to break, there's really not a direct from manufacturer part available. We could do gray market, which means, you know, somebody had a server and this component failed, but we need that other component, so they rip it out and sell it to us, which, you know, who knows how long that's going to last.
Is this quote for both districts? It would
Yes.
serve both districts?
That currently replaces 100% of the server equipment in the server room and gives us, I always underestimate, I'd love to say, you know, 5 years, no sweat, but as soon as I say that, it only lasts 2 years. So I would say comfortably, we would not outgrow this system within 5 years. It's got enough overhead for us to, you know, spin up new servers and that sort of thing. And, you know, we're not moving away from technology in any stretch. We're moving more stuff to, you know, server-based and internet-based technologies, so.
Does E-rate cover any of this?
Unfortunately, servers were removed from the E-rate program several years ago, about 7 years ago. So E-rate will not pay for any of this. And the only way E-rate will pay for servers if it's used for caching internet content. And if we're going to do caching, this cost goes up considerably. We currently don't do any caching.
James does a pretty good job of bringing computer speak down to normal speak, but some things don't translate very well.
So the E-rate rebate
Layman
won't
terms.
offset the cost of going to that program?
No.
Okay.
What caching does is say you have a group of students and you go to a website, and then the very next period you have the same group of students go to the same website. The caching appliance will cache that data and then deliver it to the students so it doesn't have to download it off the internet again. Unfortunately, every single caching appliance I've ever used is slower than directly connecting to the internet. Every time we've tried to turn on a caching appliance, immediately I start getting phone calls. Is the internet down? Did something happen? Is it going slow? We turn it off, everything goes back to normal and everybody's happy again, because when a student makes that second request, it's got to go through its table and go, oh, did I download this already? Oh, no, download the fresh copy. And then the next two, did I download this already? And all that stuff just takes time. And we process 250,000 requests a day, easy. So when you're having to do 250,000 lookups every single day, it takes time.
See, that's when he says numbers like that, that's when we know how much we're using this stuff. You know, because think about the size of our district, and if we're doing a quarter of a million a day.
Actually, I apologize. It's a quarter of a billion. Sorry.
Okay, now I can't even,
Yeah,
I don't have any concept.
Sorry. We do a lot on the internet. And these servers aren't going to do a whole lot to speed up the internet. It certainly is not going to help our wireless at all. This is just for our daily operation stuff. This is the stuff that allows us to take attendance and process payroll and
Pay bills.
log students, and so we're looking at a lot of
Thank you.
options. This is, I should say a lot, we're looking at several options. This is one of them. And this is something that we could break up into a smaller component. If we want, this is something that we could get quotes on, or not get quotes on, but go out to bid for right away. Even if we go out to bid for something, there's nothing that says we have to accept the bids and proceed forward. And then the wireless is just a whole nother ball of wax that is E-rate eligible, which is why it's not in front of you today. We're trying to hold the main investment in the wireless off until we can get it at 85% off.
And you notice this is not on the agenda tonight or anything. It's one of those things where we really want you to have background and to help guide us into which directions we want to go. I will tell you, it scares the bejeebies out of me to think that other than the backups we do every day on those critical things, that even with the backups, if something happens to these servers, we can't even access that backup. You know, we have no way of even getting to it. So it's like it's in a locked room and we don't have a key. And as James said, this whole issue just kind of shook every school district in the state once it hit Flagstaff, because we all figured Flagstaff had probably as good a cybersecurity system as any place in the state. So, you know, it's for you to give me some advice on and some of that kind of thing. And then we haven't even talked to you about the fact that our teacher laptops are 5, 6 years old.
Well, the
Depending
current
on
ones
the
are
current
3 years, they're entering their 4th year of service, but when we bought them knowing they would only last 3 years, and they are literally falling apart.
And I would say that
And
we've
I'm
gotten
not
more than
exaggerating.
life out of our servers. You know, 10 years is pretty long for a server. So, no decisions, you know, we didn't want you to make decisions tonight. We just
Yeah.
wanted the board to be very informed about this whole issue and its impact on our budget. you
What's
know.
the space capacity, like classroom-wise, like, I mean, the whole classroom, I'm assuming you're not, like, at Sunrise, you're saying you'll, this
Oh,
is.
I apologize. We currently have a data rack at Sunrise that would hold the equipment that we need for an emergency backup. So when we go into disaster recovery mode, I'm not going to have every single server powered on. We're
Right.
not talking about, you know, I've got, we've got a web server that hosts our ticketing system. Okay, that is not a critical server. We can survive without that being turned on. So we would have, there's already enough space up there and enough power for us to run, like I said, Visions, Power School and Synergy, and the user accounts, the people logging into the system. So we're not talking about taking space away from a classroom or anything like
Why?
that.
I mean, Sunrise is one of our smaller, right? I mean, well,
Yeah, it's
kind
the
of.
space it takes is real small. It's
Yeah.
actually, there's a little like storage area between where the teacher's workroom is and the library. It's a real small area. It's not, they're not huge, big things.
The rack is,
Yeah.
the rack is approximately the size of an old phone booth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So if you
19
think in
inches
terms of
wide
phone
and
booth, you get all of
8
this
tall.
stuff in a phone booth size place. So,
I just didn't know if you were moving some of your staff up there or whatever, I don't know.
No, this is all
Just the storage for
automatic,
the
yeah.
banking it.
Yeah, this all runs automatic. We have a monitoring system that monitors our critical services, so when something goes haywire, supposedly it will show up, and every now and then something goes wrong that doesn't show up in the monitoring system. And one thing to note that did kind of help me sleep a little better at night, I was told that all of the teachers at all of the teachers at Flagstaff Unified were administrators on their local computer, which we do not know, but may have contributed to that. So that is one thing we don't allow here. So we sometimes get very frustrated teachers because I can't install my home printer or something like that, but that is the number one thing you can do to prevent, you know, cybersecurity incidents, is not allow staff to install whatever they can on a computer, because the bad guys are very crafty at getting people to click on things.
and in fact, we have even further restricted administrative access or administrative abilities on our systems as a result of audit reports last year, both from the regular audit and the performance audit. And then James said he'd also had a push from the trust to make sure that we are restricting who can actually install new things on the computers. So I can't. James and his crew are the only ones who can. So I hadn't known that piece, so that's a good piece for us to know.
Right, and like it's not confirmed it was from a former employee. So-
Right.
And
right.
we have no evidence to suggest that it contributed at all, but it is a factor. And we are looking at staff training options, whether we can buy a program to help with staff training. The Fox Creek Junior High School and Bullhead City Middle School actually received a program through a grant that sends out monthly videos concerning cybersecurity, and I'm on the list, so I get them and I watch them, and they're great videos.
Only like 2 minutes long, if that.
Yeah, so that might be something we look at deploying district-wide and expanding that a little bit. The trust does provide other services. They can do fake emails to staff to see who falls for the trap, so to speak, and they're also looking at not a modernism, but a centralized logging system so that you can kind of get a sense for when a threat like this is happening, and those services are provided as part of our membership.
Well, thank you. You guys have any other questions on this?
Thank you, James.
Okay.
You guys are welcome to contact me at any time if you have questions about our cybersecurity preparedness or our disaster recovery preparedness. We're putting the final touches on our disaster recovery plan. It's generally not something we publish because it does contain information about our internal network and processes and stuff like that we don't want out for everybody to see. I'm more than happy to share it with you guys, but it's not something we want posted anywhere because it does contain information about how our network is configured and positioned.
And it's just like our emergency plans at any site. You have internal knowledge and then you have pieces that are known by the public, but you don't want everybody out there to know all of the pieces of any plan that you have for emergency at any of our sites. So we don't need to hand them information.
Okay, well, if we have nothing else, I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you, second.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I think you're safe doing that one. Yeah, I'll take them if you want. If you want to give me a back in the paper to recycle, you can have that. Do you want a little break before you start?
Yeah, I'm going to.
Can I have a little break?
Yes.
Thank you all.
We're gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order. Can I get, I call to order the regular meeting of Bullhead City Elementary District Board on Thursday, 10/17/19 at 6:32 p.m. Secretary, please call to the roll.
Doug Lutz,
Here.
Brandy DeBoe,
Dubois. Present.
Jeannie Borland,
Present.
Corey Burgess,
Here.
Diane Beardsley.
Present. Thank you. Citizens present, please print your name on the attendance list at the back and sign in if you have not done so already. Number 2, will you join in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Call to the public. This is the time that the public may speak to the governing board regarding issues within the jurisdiction of the governing board and subject to reasonable time, space, and manner restrictions as the governing board may establish. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per individual unless specifically waived by the governing board. Sorry, I need my glasses. At the conclusion of this call to the matter, to the public, individual members of the governing board may respond to the criticism made by those who have addressed the board, may ask staff to review a matter, or may ask that a matter be placed on a future agenda. However, the governing board cannot take action on matters that have not been noted in the advances as part of the agenda. So, I have Gina Covert.
Hello, Gina Covert, Colorado River Union High School District, Madam Chair, members of the board. I just wanted to take a second and thank you for supporting the Colorado River Union High School District's Career Expo Day. Your 8th graders came down as they have in years past, and were able to do an afternoon session with the 200 vendors that we had available at the event. I have had opportunities since that time to talk to different college representatives and also the business representatives about the 8th grade session, which we run in the afternoon, and they wanted me to communicate how well the 8th graders behaved. They were really excited about the ones that came with assignments that they were going to report back to their classrooms with, that there were some excellent questions, and then also as a result of some of the conversations, they gave me an idea of maybe some things that we could do with them. For example, they found out that a lot of our students don't know where Prescott is. So they suggested that maybe we set up a map so that they can put their flag where they are, and so the children, when they come, you know, the 8th grade children, can find that college on the map. So overall, it's been a wonderful experience. We're going to be collaborating and also debriefing with several of those team members that came to visit at the end of this month. And I just wanted to let you know they were great, they were well behaved, and we were really glad to have them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting the expo as well. Corey Burgess.
Members of the board, I come before you this evening concerning my call to the public for item 10.1, conflict of interest. In the meeting September 19th, Ms. Beardsley asked if the district could investigate my conflict of interest. This was the third attack Ms. Beardsley has made such a claim to attempt to shut down my conversation on a topic we did not agree on. At the same meeting, my response was to question Ms. Beardsley's outstanding contract with Colorado River Union High School District, to which she responded she has no such contract. If the board would like, I have copies of such that I can share with after my call to the public, and I do have extras if anybody in the audience would like a copy also. Ms. Beardsley entered into the contract on April 25th, 2016 in the district's master's reimbursement program. This program paid to further her education in exchange for her employment with a contracted amount of time. If Ms. Beardsley voluntarily leaves the district, she agreed to reimburse the district for all expenses paid by the district. On March 19, 2018, Ms. Beardsley offered her resignation letter to Colorado River Union School District, knowing this would break her contract with the district. Ms. Beardsley has failed to hold up her part of the agreement with Crush and has cheated the taxpayer out of thousands of dollars. I wanted to bring this matters to the attention of the board because Ms. Beardsley, how can you in good conscience serve on the board, expected to be trusted with our money when at this time you couldn't be trusted with the money the district had entitled to you? Thank you.
Call to public, Diane Beardsley.
Members of the board, superintendent, this isn't really necessary tonight. I have stated my case and reasons why I left the district due to confidential reasons, and that reason is part of why Superintendent Fry is no longer here. I did fulfill I didn't have a clause in my contract to leave the district. I chose to leave because he offered me a letter stating that I would not be receiving a contract for the following school year. So in the best interest of my family, yes, I left 2 months early. And it was voted by the high school board that I would not have to pay back any money to the master's reimbursement program. And that happened in June of 2018. It was a 3-2 vote, and the vote was in favor of myself not to have to pay back any funding as I was not offered a contract. Thank you.
As president of this board, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting tonight, effective 6:38 p.m. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Or I make the motion to adjourn. Can I get a second? Actually, as president, I can adjourn the meeting. Meeting adjourned.